The fracture in the heavens. It began with a sound no one could explain. A low hum, deep and resonant, rolling across the skies above the Atlantic Ocean. At first, satellites misread it as seismic noise. An underwater quake, maybe, or some freak electromagnetic storm. But the truth was far stranger. The hum grew into a thunder that shook skyscrapers in New York and rattled windows in Lisbon. Pilots flying over the ocean reported their instruments failing. Ships on the water swore the waves were moving against the wind. Then, without warning, the sky split open. A wound tore across the heavens, jagged and shimmering like a scar of light. Fishermen off the coast of Newfoundland dropped their nets and prayed. Children in Lagos pointed at the sky and screamed. Astronomers watched through telescopes as the rift widened, stretching into a yawning gate. From it, ships spilled forth. Ships not made of steel or any metal humanity knew, but of something alive, breathing, shifting. Their hulls pulsed with eerie green light, their shapes ever-changing like shadows in liquid form. These were not explorers. They were conquerors. The Xythera dominion had come. And at their head, cloaked in armor that glimmered like black crystal, stood their queen, Xythera. She was no ordinary monarch. Her presence was psychic, pressing into the minds of all who looked at her. Even through screens and distant sensors, her gaze seemed to pierce flesh and soul alike. She spoke no words, but every human who felt her presence heard the same whisper in their thoughts. "You are mine." The world panicked. Fighter jets scrambled from carriers in the Atlantic. Nuclear silos came alive with cold readiness. Civilian evacuations began across Europe's coasts. Yet none of it mattered. The first wave of Dominion ships descended, and Earth's defenses broke like twigs in a storm. Missiles detonated harmlessly against shifting hulls. Bullets ricocheted off like rain against glass. Entire squadrons of aircraft were swallowed whole by swarms of living drones that latched onto their wings, tearing them from the sky. Humanity had fought wars for millennia, but nothing in their history compared to this. For the first time in centuries, the human race felt utterly powerless. But Earth was not undefended. The first streak of hope came from the west. A red and blue blur carved through the clouds, leaving a sonic boom that split the air. Eyes lifted as a figure descended, cape billowing, eyes burning with heat, jaw set with grim determination. Superman. Kal, last son of Krypton. Protector of Earth. The people of New York cheered when they saw him streak overhead. In Lisbon, entire crowds pointed to the sky, shouting his name. Across the planet, hope ignited. If Superman was here, then maybe, just maybe, Earth stood a chance. He didn't hesitate. Superman tore into the first wave. Heat vision lancing through ships, fists shattering drones like paper. He moved faster than radar could track, faster than thought. For a moment, humanity believed again. But then the skies thundered once more. Lightning ripped across the horizon, not from any storm but from a god himself. A figure landed on the deck of a sinking destroyer, crushing Dominion drones beneath armored boots. His hammer, Mjolnir, screamed with thunder as he raised it high, summoning storms to the battlefield. The sea heaved, the clouds boiled, and lightning cascaded down in chains of white fire. Thor Odinson had arrived. The Norse god of thunder, heir of Asgard, ally of mankind. Where Superman was precision and speed, Thor was fury and might. His hammer broke through the living hulls of Dominion ships, exploding them from within. His laughter boomed like rolling thunder as he waded into battle, every strike of Mjolnir a promise that Earth would not fall easily. For the first time, the Dominion's advance faltered. The alien queen Xythera watched from her flagship, her gaze narrowing. She had expected resistance, but not this. Her mind reached outward, brushing against Superman's unyielding will, Thor's immortal spirit. She tasted power unlike any she had consumed before. Gods among mortals, she realized. Worthy prey. Her voice slithered into their minds. You are children of dying worlds, she whispered. You are relics clinging to fading glory. Kneel, and I will let you serve me. Resist, and I will make you my trophies. Superman clenched his fists. I've heard that before, he muttered, his voice like iron. It never ends well for tyrants. Thor spat into the ocean, lightning crackling in his beard. I do not kneel. Not to tyrants, not to monsters, not even to fate itself. The Queen smiled. A smile sharp enough to cut. Her flagship pulsed with energy, and the sky itself seemed to darken. Thousands, no tens of thousands, of Dominion ships emerged from the rift, a swarm so vast it blotted out the stars. It was not an invasion. It was an extinction. Human soldiers on the ground watched the sky and felt despair clutch their hearts. No weapons of theirs could stand against that. No army on Earth could stop it. But in the chaos something stirred. In the streets of New York, firefighters formed barricades and rescued civilians, even as drones rained fire. In Lagos, engineers repurposed construction mechs into makeshift war machines. In Mumbai, doctors set up field hospitals before the battle had even ended. In Warsaw, ordinary citizens threw stones at Dominion patrols, refusing to run. Humanity was afraid, but it did not bow. And that stubborn refusal, that fire that no alien queen could extinguish, gave Superman and Thor strength. They were not just fighting an invasion. They were fighting for a species that would rather burn than bend. Above the Atlantic, gods clashed with a queen. The sea boiled, the sky split, and the first chapter of Earth's greatest battle began. Because when gods collide, the fate of humanity is not to watch. It is to rise. The Broken Alliance. The first clash above the Atlantic was only the beginning. Xythera, queen of the Xythera Dominion, understood the futility of brute force alone. She had ruled civilizations for millennia, not by weapons but by bending wills. And as her endless fleets surrounded Earth, her greatest weapon unfolded. Not her armies, not her ships, but her mind. Her presence seeped into the atmosphere like smoke, an invisible weight pressing down on humanity. Radios crackled with her whispers, screens flickered with her shadowed face, and in the silence of night, her voice slipped into dreams. Wherever she reached, despair followed. Your world is fragile. Your lives are brief. Surrender, and I will make you eternal. On the streets of Paris, crowds froze as visions of their deaths filled their thoughts. In Cairo, soldiers dropped weapons, overwhelmed by images of alien chains around their throats. In São Paulo, whole districts fell silent, every mind gripped by her promise of painless obedience. Even the gods were not immune. Superman hovered above the burning coastline of Spain. His jaw tight, his vision blurred. He heard voices, not just Xythera's but his parents long dead. Krypton's cities, whole and shining, appeared before him. We can live again, the illusion whispered. If you yield, Krypton will rise. You can save us all. His chest ached. For a moment, his heart wavered. On the other side of the battle, Thor staggered on the deck of a shattered cruiser. His hammer grew heavy in his hand. Before his eyes, he saw Asgard in flames, Ragnarok unfolding as he had always feared. His father's voice boomed. You failed, Thor. You brought only ruin. The god of thunder fell to one knee, breath ragged, lightning sputtering around him. The alien queen watched from her throne of living bone, her smile slow and cold. She had broken gods before. She would break these. But then, something she had not anticipated happened. In New York, a woman in firefighter's gear lifted a trapped child from a collapsed building. Her arms burned, her lungs filled with smoke, but she kept moving. She shouted, "We don't quit. Not today." Her voice carried across radios, broadcast live to millions. In Lagos, engineers who had hijacked Dominion drones began transmitting their feed worldwide. Citizens watched as humans, ordinary men and women, hacked alien technology with nothing but stubborn brilliance and reckless courage. In Tokyo, a group of unarmed civilians rushed into the streets, waving makeshift banners that read, "We will not kneel." The Dominion's drones fired warning shots. Still the humans stood. And across the world, those acts of defiance spread like wildfire. Superman gasped as Krypton's illusion wavered. In the smoke of the hallucination he saw Earth, its people rising, fighting, burning, living. Humanity had no godlike strength, no immortality, no alien powers. But they had will. A will that no queen could bend. Thor roared, his vision clearing. The false Ragnarok dissolved into mist, replaced by the cries of mortals who still fought on streets below. He slammed Mjolnir into the ship beneath him, rising to his feet. "Your lies are ash," he bellowed to the skies. "And your chains will never bind Midgard." The queen hissed, her psychic grip cracking. For the first time in centuries, her dominion met resistance she could not crush. The battle raged harder. Superman tore through another wave of ships, his heat vision burning lines of fire across the Atlantic night. Thor summoned storms so vast they stretched across continents, lightning splitting entire squadrons of Dominion craft. Humanity, inspired, fought back with everything it had: stones, rifles, stolen alien weapons, even their bare hands. Still, the cost was immense. Cities burned. Millions fled. Every victory came at the price of blood. And amid the chaos, cracks began to form, not just in Earth's defenses, but between the very gods who had come to save them. Thor wanted to strike directly at Xythera, to shatter her throne and crush her fleet in a single divine assault. "Cut off the serpent's head, and the body will fall," he growled. Superman disagreed. "If we charge straight at her, we risk everything. Millions could die if she retaliates. We need to protect humanity first." Thor's eyes flared with stormlight. "You speak of shielding ants while the wolf devours the world. I will not stand idle." Superman's jaw tightened. "And I won't let you turn Earth into a graveyard just to win a war." Their voices clashed like steel. For a moment, it seemed the alliance itself might break. Xythera watched with satisfaction, her whispers sliding between their anger, fanning it like flame. "They are not united," she murmured into the void. "They will tear each other apart." But then came the moment that silenced her. On every broadcast, across every hacked signal, human voices rose. They weren't leaders or soldiers or gods. They were ordinary people. Nurses in Mexico City, miners in Johannesburg, teachers in Seoul. Their message was simple, carried in hundreds of languages. "We don't need gods to save us. We fight with them. Not beneath them. With them." The words cut through the noise, through the fear, through the Queen's whispers. Superman heard it. Thor heard it. And for the first time since the rift had opened, they understood their place. They weren't saviors. They weren't rulers. They weren't alone. They were allies. Superman extended a hand to Thor. "Then we do this together. Not as gods above men, but as brothers beside them." Thor's storm-wreathed face broke into a fierce grin. He clasped Superman's hand, lightning sparking between them. Let the Queen taste what it means to defy Midgard and man alike." The skies erupted as they launched side by side, one a comet of fire, the other a storm of fury. Humanity cheered from the ground, their defiance burning brighter than the fires of war. And for the first time in her endless reign, Queen Xythera felt something alien to her nature. Because gods could be broken, empires could be shattered, but a world that refused to kneel, that was a force she had never conquered. War of Three Thrones. The rift above the Atlantic did not close. Instead it grew. Every hour, it widened into a gaping scar that linked Earth to a corridor of space dominated by the Xythera Dominion. The Queen's armies poured through in endless streams, drones, battleships, and twisted constructs that warped reality itself. Earth was no longer merely under attack. It had become the front line of a war for the galaxy. Superman and Thor fought tirelessly. Days bled into nights without pause. One streaked through fleets as a burning comet, shattering ships with fists that cracked steel and vision that cut through armor. The other became a storm given flesh, lightning tearing through squadrons while Mjolnir hammered Dominion titans into ruin. But even gods had limits. For every ship destroyed, 3 more emerged from the rift. For every drone shattered, another hive awakened. And yet Earth did not fall. The reason wasn't just Superman. It wasn't only Thor. It was humanity. In underground bunkers and makeshift war rooms, scientists worked night and day, dissecting captured Dominion technology. In Lagos, engineers adapted Dominion energy cores into weapons. In Berlin, hackers broke into the Dominion's psychic communication web, flooding it with human noise, songs, prayers, curses, and laughter. In New Delhi, ordinary citizens built barricades, refusing to abandon their streets. The message spread across the stars. Humanity would not kneel. That defiance carried beyond Earth. The Queen's enemies, alien races long enslaved, saw the broadcasts, heard the voices. For the first time they realized the unthinkable. If humans could resist, maybe they could too. Xythera sensed the ripple of rebellion and knew she had to crush Earth utterly. Not with numbers. Not with whispers. With terror. Her flagship emerged from the rift, a living citadel the size of a continent. Its wings stretched like obsidian, its body pulsed with crimson veins of energy, and its shadow covered half the Atlantic. At its heart, the Queen herself rose, towering beyond mortal scale, clad in cosmic armor. Her voice boomed across the globe, echoing in every mind. "Kneel or I will unmake you." For a heartbeat, the world froze. Then, in the White House, the President of the United States leaned into a microphone. In the Kremlin, a general barked orders. In Nairobi, a farmer lifted a rifle older than him. In Sydney, children painted banners that read "No Queen rules us." Their voices joined as one, transmitted on every frequency humanity could reach. "We will not kneel." The defiance struck like thunder. Superman's chest swelled with pride. Thor threw back his head and roared with laughter. Humanity, fragile and breakable, had chosen its throne, not beneath gods, not beneath aliens, but beside them. The war reached its peak. The battlefield stretched from Earth to the stars beyond the rift. Thor and Superman carried the fight across worlds. Thor shattered moons where Dominion factories birthed new drones. His storms boiling seas and cracking mountains. Superman dived into the heart of enemy fleets, ripping apart flagships with raw strength and blazing eyes. Xythera answered every strike with greater fury. She unleashed weapons forged from dying suns, dark matter cannons that erased entire fleets in silence. She wielded the Dominion's hive mind like a whip, bending billions of soldiers to her will. But the war was no longer hers alone. Human fleets, clumsy, battered, and built in weeks rather than centuries, pushed through the rift. They were freighters converted into warships, space stations turned into fortresses. They were not elegant, they were not powerful, but they were manned by humans who refused to back down. One such vessel, the ISS Dauntless, tore through Dominion lines, its captain screaming over comms, "For Earth! For freedom!" When it exploded in a blaze of light, it took 3 Dominion carriers with it. Acts of sacrifice lit the darkness like stars. And slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. Yet unity was fragile. Among humanity's leaders, voices of doubt rose. Some whispered that Thor and Superman were just another form of god-kings, and that one day, they too might demand Earth's submission. Others suggested accepting Xythera's offer, joining her empire in exchange for survival. Better to kneel and live, they argued, than stand and die. The debate boiled into near mutiny. On the battlefield, Xythera amplified their doubts, weaving them into poisonous visions. She showed Earth's leaders images of Superman crowned in alien fire, Thor seated on a throne of storm, humanity enslaved beneath their feet. The temptation spread. The fractures widened. But then once more it was not gods who answered. It was humanity. Broadcasts went live across the rift. Soldiers in trenches, engineers in bunkers, children in refugee camps. One by one, voices declared, "We don't follow gods. We don't follow queens. We follow each other." The words hit like a hammer. Superman heard them and smiled grimly. Thor heard them and raised Mjolnir with pride. Even Xythera faltered, her hive mind disrupted by the sheer volume of defiance. This war was no longer gods against gods. It was no longer a queen against mortals. It was three thrones colliding: the Dominion, the gods, and humanity itself. The decisive battle loomed. The rift pulsed, unstable from the strain of endless fleets passing through. Xythera prepared her ultimate weapon, a living construct forged from the essence of captured stars, a war beast that could consume entire worlds. Superman and Thor knew the truth. They couldn't defeat it alone. On the ground, human engineers unveiled their desperate gamble, a weapon designed not by alien technology or divine magic, but by human ingenuity. A resonance bomb that could destabilize the rift and sever the Dominion from Earth forever. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't safe. And it required someone to carry it into the rift's heart. Thousands volunteered. Superman's eyes burned with the weight of choice. Thor's hand tightened on Mjolnir. Both were ready to sacrifice themselves. But humanity spoke first. "This is our world," a pilot said, her voice calm. "Our fight. Our choice." And so, side by side, gods and humans prepared to face the final storm. The War of Three Thrones would end not with worship, but with fire. The last throne. The rift throbbed like a wound in the sky. Jagged lightning arcs split across its surface, spilling fragments of broken stars into the Atlantic. Around it swirled the shattered remains of fleets, Dominion husks, Earth's improvised warships, and alien vessels of freed rebels who had joined the fight. All of them converged for the final battle. At the center of the storm, the Queen's war beast unfurled its wings. It was colossal, larger than mountains, a skeletal leviathan whose veins pulsed with molten starlight. With each breath, it pulled energy from dying suns across the rift. One strike from its claws could erase a continent. Xythera rode upon it like a dark goddess. Her armor shimmered with crimson and violet, her crown burning with psychic flame. Her voice echoed across every frequency, every mind. "You cannot stop destiny. Mortals bow, gods fade. But the Dominion endures eternal." Superman's fists clenched. His cape whipped like fire in the void. Thor stood beside him, storm-wreathed and unbroken, Mjolnir humming with power. Below them, Earth's fleet, battered, burning but unyielding, formed ranks. And at the heart of it all, within a small hangar on the ruined Dauntless, a single human pilot prepared humanity's final weapon, the resonance bomb. It was ugly, unfinished, dangerous. It could destabilize the rift and collapse it, severing Earth forever from the Dominion. But to deploy it, someone had to fly into the beast's heart and trigger it manually. The pilot's name was Captain Aisha Rahman. Her call sign, Iron Heart. She had lost her family when the first Dominion fleet struck Karachi. She had fought in the trenches when drones overran Europe. She had volunteered not because she wanted to die, but because she refused to live as a slave. When Superman and Thor came to the hangar, offering to carry the bomb themselves, she shook her head firmly. "This is not your sacrifice," she told them. "You are symbols. You'll be needed tomorrow. Me. I'm just human. That's enough." Thor lowered his gaze in respect. Superman's eyes shone with something close to tears. They didn't argue. The final assault began. The skies erupted in fire as Earth's fleet charged. Fighters screamed through the void, harrying Dominion squadrons. Crippled carriers rammed into dreadnoughts, detonating in blinding blossoms. Rebel ships, once slaves to the hive, turned their guns on their former masters, carving bloody paths. Thor led the vanguard, a storm made flesh. Lightning leapt from his hammer, cracking across the beast's hide, each strike tearing mountains of flesh and metal from its wings. He laughed as he fought, not with joy, but with the grim roar of one who knows his end may be near. Superman darted through space like a blazing comet. His fists shattered the war beast's armored ribs. His eyes burned with heat vision that seared through its veins. When Dominion Titans swarmed him, he flung them aside, faster than thought, stronger than steel. But the queen was not idle. Xythera extended her mind, lashing into billions of soldiers, rebels, and even humans. She whispered doubt, sowed despair. Ships turned on each other. Fighters spiraled into suicide dives. Even generals hesitated, seeing visions of their own failure. Superman faltered for a moment as she invaded his thoughts, showing him Krypton's ashes, telling him Earth would burn the same. Thor staggered as she filled his ears with Odin's disapproving voice, calling him a failure. But then came humanity's answer. From Earth across every channel voices rose. Children singing in shelters. Soldiers shouting battle cries. Civilians banging pots in the ruins of cities, refusing to be silent. Billions of voices, angry, grieving, defiant. We are here. We are alive. We will not bow. The psychic storm cracked. Xythera reeled. Her hive mind faltered. That was when Captain Aisha made her move. Her small fighter, patched with scrap and battle scars, streaked toward the warbeast. Alarms screamed. Hull plates buckled. The bomb's core pulsed dangerously. "Paths open," she whispered over comms. "Cover me, gods." Superman heard. Thor heard. And they obeyed. Thor unleashed a torrent of lightning, blasting open a cavity in the beast's chest. Superman tore through swarms of drones, punching a corridor clear. Together, they carved a path straight into the monster's heart. Aisha dove into the wound. Inside was chaos, veins of burning plasma, bone-like mountains, organs the size of cities. She flew through it, dodging collapsing tissue and psychic tendrils lashing out to crush her. The bomb's timer armed. 30 seconds. Her voice crackled across the comms. Tell them humanity chose this." Superman's eyes burned with grief. Thor's roar shook the heavens. And then the bomb detonated. The explosion was not fire. It was resonance. Vibrations tuned to the rift itself. Base screamed. Time warp. The rift collapsed inward, sucking the beast, the queen, and the Dominion's armada into itself. Xythera shrieked, her psychic scream tearing across galaxies. In her last moment, she tried to cling to Earth's minds, to carve her dominion into their souls. But humanity's defiance rejected her. Her scream cut off. Her empire broke. The rift imploded in a final flash of blinding light. When it cleared, the sky was empty. The queen was gone. The dominion was severed. Earth was scarred but free. Silence followed. Then cheers. Then sobs. On Earth, crowds poured into streets, holding each other, crying, laughing. Across the stars, slaves of the Dominion realized their chains had shattered. Rebellion ignited like wildfire. The galaxy itself shifted. Superman drifted above the ocean, cape torn, body bloodied but unbowed. Thor landed beside him, breathing hard, Mjolnir scorched from overuse. For a long moment they said nothing. Finally Thor spoke, voice heavy with respect. "Your people," he said, "are mad, fragile, foolish. And by Odin, they are glorious." Superman looked toward Earth, eyes glistening. "They don't need gods," he whispered. "They just need each other." And in that truth, both gods bowed their heads, not in shame but in reverence. Years later, statues would rise not of Thor or Superman, but of Captain Aisha Rahman. Not for her weapon, not for her death, but for her choice. She had shown that the last throne, the one no god or queen could claim, belonged to humanity alone.